Good morning, students. Today we are going to start the first biology chapter of class 10th science, that is life processes. In this chapter we are going to learn the differences between what is alive and what is not alive. Next, and what do we attribute for a living thing which is not there in a non-living thing? That is the difference between living and non-living things. Living things examples are animals and plants. How can you say some animal is alive? By its movements during its active condition. Movements like walking, shouting, etc. during active condition. When the animal is at sleep, if the animal fallen asleep, then by its breathing we will come to know the animal is still alive. And what about plants? Plants have green leaves. Plants, they have green leaves. If all the leaves dried up, if the plant is dead, then will the leaves be still in green color? No, they will not be in green color. So having green colored leaves. But some plants, they do not have green leaves. What about them? How will you come to know that the plant is alive? By the freshness of the plant, by the water content in the plant. Next, over a period of time, the plant will grow, right? So plants grow over a period of time. Plants will grow over a period of time, right? Okay. So we can consider movements as the common evidence for being alive. So can we take movements as the common evidence? Common evidence for being alive. Movements are the common evidence for being alive. Okay. And these movements are of two types. The movements which are not related to growth, the movements which are related to growth. Before going to that, we can take the movements are of two types based on their visibility and non-visibility. The visible movements, that is during the active time, walking, shouting, all these things are visible movements. Growing over a period of time also will be visible like a movement. That type of movements are called visible movements. But internally, in living organisms, some small molecules which are not seen by our naked eyes, they also will keep making some movements. Those are called molecular movements. They are not visible movements. So here what we have discussed is only visible movements. Visible movements can be taken as common evidence for being alive normally. But using visible movement as defining character, using visible movement as defining character of being alive. using visible movement as defining character of being alive is not enough, because some movements are not visible. Some movements are not visible. As some movements are not visible, using visible movements as defining character of life. As defining character of life is not enough. Is not enough. Using visible movements alone as defining character of life is not enough, because some movements are not visible. What are those movements which are not visible? The movements that are taking place among the biomolecules. Biomolecules like proteins, lipids, nucleic acids, okay, amino acids, etc. All these things which are present in the structure of the living organisms, they also exhibit many movements. Those movements are called molecular movements. So molecular movements are not visible to our naked eyes. Molecular movements are invisible to naked eyes. Molecular movements are invisible to naked eyes. Okay. But these molecular movements are very, very essential, are very, very necessary for being alive. These are not simply just indication of being alive. These are very, very essential or necessary for being alive by any living organism. There is a controversy regarding viruses. There is a controversy regarding viruses about their living status, whether they are truly living or not, because viruses do not exhibit any of these molecular movements. Viruses do not exhibit any of these molecular movements on their own until they infect a living host cell. Only when a virus is inside the living host cell, then only molecular movements are exhibited by the virus. When the virus is outside of the living host cell, then there are no such molecular movements exhibited by viruses. That is why there is a controversy whether the viruses are truly living or not. Why molecular movements are needed for being alive? Why molecular movements are needed for being alive? If a living organism has to be in living condition, then in its intact, well-organized body structure is very, very essential. But living organisms are living in some environment. Environment will keep giving certain physical, chemical and some other pressures on the living organisms. Because of the external pressures given by the environmental conditions, the well-organized structure of living organisms may tend to get some damage. If this damage is not repaired, then the living organism will lose its intact, well-organized structure. If the living organism loses its intact, well-organized structure, then it may die. So, in order to prevent wear and tear or damage caused by the environmental pressures and to maintain the well-organized structure of the living organisms, molecular movements are essential. So, why the molecular movements are needed for life? The well-organized structures of organisms are needed to be maintained in order to be alive, by the living organisms. So, to keep repairing and maintaining the well-organized structures, of the living organisms, molecules must move all around the time, or molecular movements must take place, right? In order to keep repairing and maintaining the well-organized structure of living organisms, molecular movements are needed. Right? Okay. Now, and the repairing and maintaining functions together can be considered as maintenance functions, right? And how these maintenance functions are carried out? How the maintenance functions are carried out? How the maintenance functions are carried out. The processes which together perform the maintenance job of organized structure of living organisms. Processes which together perform the maintenance job or function to keep the well-organized structure of the living organisms are known as life processes. There are 4 certain life processes. They are nutrition, respiration, transportation and excretion. Nutrition, respiration, transportation and excretion. These are the 4 life processes. What is nutrition? The process of transfer of the food from the outside of the body of the organism to its inside. Process of transfer of food from the outside the body of the organism to its inside is called nutrition. If you take the life on the earth depends on carbon-based molecules. What are those carbon-based molecules on which the life is dependent on? Proteins, carbohydrates, nucleic acids, lipids, etc. These are various types of carbon-based molecules. So, most of the food sources are also carbon-based only. As the life on earth is dependent on carbon-based biomolecules, most of the food sources are also carbon-based molecules only. Different organisms use different types of nutritional processes because there are many differences among the complexities of the food sources. Life on earth depends on carbon-based food sources. But are all these carbon-based food sources are same, or are they going to have some differences? They have some differences. As there are differences in the complexities of carbon-based food molecules, different organisms use different types of nutritional processes. Right. Okay. Whatever the food sources that they may be taken inside the body of the organism, what will be the fate of those carbon-based food sources? In some organisms, based on the type of the sources that are taken inside, they will be combined and some other material is made. In the other type of organisms, based on the food sources that they are taken inside, those food sources are broken down and some other material is prepared. Right? And finally, a uniform source of energy is made. So in some organisms, the food sources X and Y food sources are taken inside. Assume it will be broken down and Z is created. In other organisms, a food source is taken and it is broken down and it will be just forming Z plus B plus C, etc. So here some organisms, whatever the food sources they are taking inside, those are combined and Z is built up. And here A is taken inside, it is broken down. Here combining act is taking place, here braking act is taking place. But finally Z is created in all the organisms. That is called uniform source of energy. Whether it is plant, whether it is animal, irrespective of the type of the organism, a uniform source of energy is finally formed, and using which energy is generated by some oxidizing and reducing reactions. And in this process, some raw materials also are produced which are used for the growth and development of the body. After all, the living organisms need both energy and raw materials for the survival. Remaining things we will discuss in the next class. Thank you.